Depot, the internet's only live auction site for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Here are your hosts, Nelson Burbett, Rick Taylor, and Fantasy Heather.
Yo, and welcome to Dynasty Depot Live. It's Season 2, Episode 4. Who is Eric Balkman episode? I'm Nels V. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I'd like to bring in my co-host and my podcast better half, Fantasy Heather. How are you, Heather?
Hi, Nelson.
That's a problem. There you are. Late as always, Heather. How are you?
I'm not late.
You were late. You were spinning a little bit. I'm not sure.
Was I?
Heather, new background?
Elements.
New background?
New background, and I don't think my lighting is going to be affected tonight. So this is a little bit of a game changer.
Or a bar? What are you sitting at?
Yeah, I'm sitting at a custom bar.
And you're not drinking? No bar and oh shit. Okay, Heather. It's gonna be one of those shows with you. Go ahead, pour one for me there. There you go. What do we got? What are we drinking?
Little dirty martini my husband whipped up for me.
Very nice.
Cheers.
Cheers. So, what's going on, Heather? All good? We got a fun show tonight. You know what's going to be nice? We're not going to be here an hour and a half tonight. We're going to talk to a really cool dude, find out who Eric Balkman is tonight. And
although I do think we could talk to Eric Balkman for an hour and a half.
Well, we might do that, but you don't want drinking, so it's probably, it's probably what it is. So, Heather, Dynasty Depot is ripping. Had our biggest week ever the last 7 days. And the cool thing is we're still maintaining over 300 teams for sale on the site. So all these new members, all these sales, saw several sales.
It's quite refreshing because my other gig is in real estate where there's zero inventory. And then you come over to Dynasty Depot and there is inventory. There's teams to buy. People are buying teams. They're listing teams. It's busy.
It's really busy. And, we ran a little promo with our FFPC friends. Try DD. I thought of that. I'm sure you liked it. Try DD promo, where we gave them a free 30 days to come on board. And if you haven't tried Dynasty Depot yet. So these guys have been coming on and flooding us. Okay, I don't know if it's the free 30 days if people want it for free, but they're flooding us and buying and buying teams. And the cool thing is you can't leave because if you buy a team, it's not going to qualify for the leaderboard if you leave. So, I mean, so you're not going anywhere, and that's nice. But these guys are great. So I just talked to this dude, right, for 45 minutes before the show. This guy, Dan S. S is in Sam. Okay. The guy signed up, asked me all these questions, and Heather, by email, don't email me. Pick up the phone and call me. I'm not chicken pecking and typing 4,000 answer questions to my friend Dan S. I send him a message. Dude, you want answers? You call me. I'll give them to you. Dan S calls me, and we go through everything. And the guy, listen, the guy was sharp. And he said, I'm bidding on these 3 teams. I don't know what the reserves are. I don't know how to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I went to school with this guy, and I'm like, we're going through my teams that I have for sale. And I'm not telling him the reserve, but I'm saying, what do you think the reserve? And he got pretty damn close on a lot of them. So then he goes back, right? And he's telling me these 3 teams that he's looking at right now. And he said, and I said, Dan, what do you think the reserves are? Now, Heather, being a veteran of Dynasty Depot, the reserves usually between 20 and 30% less than the buy it now, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the formula.
Right.
And this guy was doing it, and then I looked before we came on, and my friend Dan just bought a badass team that looks like it's going to be able to sustain himself for a while. New customer. I love new customers. I'm excited. I was happy to teach the guy the Dynasty game a little bit. And I think I'm a mentor now, Heather. A mentor.
Nelson.
A
mentor. It's really fitting. That's good.
So anyway, Ricky T's telling me his camera doesn't work, or
I know he's having some technical difficulties.
Okay, well we're not that worried about him because he'll show up when he does. So Heather, what's going on?
Yeah. Go. So in addition to your very, very, very clever TryDD promo code,
yes,
we do have another promo code right now that is our podcast. So this is for people that, it's basically the same trial, 30-day membership. More so for people that are listening to this, they can go on our website, put in the promo code podcast, and it'll be a free 30-day rookie membership. And that one sip got me all tongue-tied already.
Right, no. And then they're going to text 45 questions. I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to text them back, call me, put my number in. And now you're making more work for me because new members are going to sign up. And I refuse to email these people back.
I think what I'm going to do is on all of these promotions, I'm just going to put your phone number. And that's going to solve that problem.
I don't care. I'm happy to answer the question. I am not emailing you back 75 answers. So, Heather, something cool. So, a couple people wanted people like me that have sold 50 teams already this year and bought 50 teams. Okay, the notifications are getting a little lengthy where your fingers running, to get to the page. We're going to be clearing notifications every 72 hours beginning tomorrow evening. So that's cool, right?
Yep, it's awesome.
And tomorrow, if you are the high bidder and you get to claim your team because you are the high bidder on a team that did not hit reserve, you are going to be able to claim that team and see the team that you did not win on but is being offered to you. That's happening tomorrow, Heather.
Listen, the thing is, when I get these emails that come to the support at Dynasty Depot and they ask for, is there a way I can get my notifications cleared? They ask, is there a way that I can view my team before I accept it, before I claim it? And within a week, it's done. So kudos to you and the team getting everything. People will have suggestions and it's getting done, getting handled, and it's awesome. So it's great.
Heather, that we have sold close to 600 teams in the first 5 weeks of Dynasty Depot. Did you know
incredible.
that?
It's pretty incredible. Yes.
I'm trying to figure out what the hell these people are doing out there. These things are trading. So I bought a team the other day, right? And it was a 250 team, and it was just priced low. I bought it for $125. Okay? Happened to be on the site. I rarely am on the site, but I was on the site. I bought it for $125. I put it up for sale for $250 a minute after I bought it for $125, and 3 minutes later, somebody bought it for $250. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Well, you know what? We would not be where we are if it wasn't for the FFPC.
We wouldn't. And I would not be where I am if it wasn't for our very special guest, because not that I got friendly with this guy, but I would ask him questions. He's had me on his show, and I was just a high-stakes young man, not a Dynasty Depot.
He was your mentor. He was your mentor.
He wasn't my mentor. He's somebody that, I can't think of the analogy, that everybody knows, okay? Like, nobody knows Alex. Some people do. Nobody knows Dave. He's not coming out of the living room for anybody except our show once every couple years. This guy is really the face. He hosts the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour for FFPC that is now going to be on YouTube, which is better. So when he has me on, they could see my smiling face. I would like to introduce my friend and bring on our very special guest, Mr. Eric Balkman.
What's up, everybody? Thank you, Nels. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it.
Hi, Eric.
Yes. It says bulky. It should say FFPC, because this guy's FFPC, man.
But you know what? we got to send him a swag bag, and I want a bulky hat. So I'm going to make that deal for sure.
Dude. Yeah, the bulky hats, we need to mass produce them. There's been a lot of requests for them lately.
I think so.
So when I thought of ideas for the show, I wanted to have Eric on, but a lot of the questions I'm going to ask Eric, I want to know. Because, you don't understand how they're so. Let's say FFPC does 100,000 drafts a year with best ball, dynasty, main events, football guys, 100,000 drafts. This guy is, and we're going to talk about this, he moderates a lot of these high stakes drafts. So many people know this guy, okay? So many. The drafts start late because everybody's typing in the chat box, Eric, he's bullshitting around. Everybody's got his phone number because he has to put the number on there if there's a problem. So, I mean, this guy is FFPC. So, my first question is, how the hell did you get involved with FFPC? How long have you been there? How did the marriage with FFPC and Balky come together?
It was well, number one. So Dave is my I answer to him for my day job as well. And originally, when the FFPC started back in 2008, he was going out to Las Vegas for the live events and stuff like that. And then we'd have the live drafts out there, right? But we didn't have a small army of what we have right now with people taking the live draft boards and then inputting them into the website. Somebody else had to do that. So I'd be at home in Wisconsin, and Dave would email me these images of the draft boards. Hey, Balky, can you input these teams? And he's my boss for my other job. So what am I going to do? Say no? Obviously, I'm going to say yes. So I said yes, and I did that for a few years. And then I just, at some point, I just sort of became an employee. Like, I just kept getting more and more duties. Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Yeah, no problem. And they were paying me for it. It's not like I was volunteering my time.
Right.
But so then and then all of a sudden I just became, part of the FFPC somehow. And then in 2012, I think it was 2012. Yeah, it's 2012. We were talking about doing a podcast, Rob, because there's a couple of high stakes fantasy football podcasts out there. And Dave and Alex, I think, wanted to get one for the FFPC. And I had some chops in doing radio at that time. And the whole idea of the high stakes fantasy football hour is like, well, let's get more people excited about coming out to Las Vegas and playing in the FFPC and do it.
Right.
So, the podcast would drum up interest for that. And then I think that sort of, outside of what you mentioned, the facilitation of the high stakes events in Las Vegas, and then the online, like the Football Guys Players Championship, those drafts that I facilitate in the summer, that the podcast became the main thing that I was doing. And now, I mean, however many years later, 10 years later or whatever, now I'm sort of doing, Sirius XM appearances, Dynasty Depot, the greatest podcast out there. I'm doing an appearance with you guys. And I do another podcast for RotoViz for the FFPC. And I've been doing the marketing emails. I do a lot of the not all of the social media stuff, but I do a lot of the social media stuff. So it's just been one of those things where, because Dave was, or is, my boss at my day job, he just sort of, jammed these extra duties in, and I kept saying yes to all of them. And now the FFPC is a huge part of my life because I couldn't say no, essentially.
So he tricked you.
He tricked me.
He tricked you into where you're at right now.
So, but I mean, you are involved in a lot of the promos. I remember when Dynasty Depot was first starting, you were one of the first guys I reached out to. Would you please put an email out to the customer list, like that? So you're really a go-between, a lot between the customers and the big boys, Alex and Dave, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you could put it. I mean, I think, in my opinion, as far as emails and digital stuff like that, I think Dave and Alex interact with most of the FFPC players a lot more than I do. But as far as like podcasting and doing everything like that, I mean, I obviously interact with them a lot more in that venue. So I think that depending upon which sort of method of communication we're talking about, Dave and Alex are much more involved than I am, and then I'm much more involved than they are on the other side of it. So it's it's a total give and take.
So we talked in the green room before the show that the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour began with you and Dave 6-7 years. I know I've been on your show as a high stakes player numerous times. Now you're reaching out and you're going to go podcast. I know you have a new partner in crime, the Kentucky dude, which is a really cool guy. Cool guy. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Dave and I, we started, well, and this is a funny story too, because we had talked about doing a podcast and nothing ever really, came about. And then I think it was in April of 2012. He just kind of said to me on Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, hey, we're our first episode is this Friday. And nice. So then I'm like,
I did that to Heather, by the way.
She was telling me, yeah. So
I had an hour's notice, however.
Okay. So I wasn't put in that exact position. But so then I'm like, I'm locking up, I'm starting Facebook pages, I'm starting Twitter accounts. I get us logged on with Blog Talk Radio to book we're normally 10 p.m. live Eastern every Friday. Right. And that was sort of how it got thrown. It's like, hey, by the way, our first podcast is this week. So we did that. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of, and I think that the slant is there are a zillion fantasy football podcasts out there. Many of them are very, very good. But I think what makes us a little bit different is the fact that we have there's so many overexposed people in the industry right now. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's fine. And certainly they deserve it. But I think there is a big section of underexposed players that don't really have a venue to talk about strategy and
right. So
player evaluation and everything like that.
It's funny. One of my biggest rants, Eric, is I'll listen to Sirius and they'll have an expert on. They have the experts on. I've been on Sirius a million times. You've been on it. I hear you. We're experts, right?
And I've always preferred the term analyst. I've never been comfortable with expert. Analyst is better. For you, Nelson, you're clearly an expert. You go with expert.
I'm going to go with expert. I don't analyze shit. I tell you how it is. I don't analyze. I just tell you what I think. I don't analyze shit. So one of my pet peeves being on this subject, and it's probably like I'm starting to sweat right now thinking about this. I hear an analyst come on and he's talking dynasty. And he's like, you take Jefferson here. Listen, I know what I'm talking about. I have 6 dynasty teams. And then the host will follow up. Oh, my God. How do you have time for waivers on 6 dynasty teams? And I'm sitting here, hey, jerk off. I got 85 of them, right? Yeah. You're not – it's that what I'm trying to say is that the people that are the experts are the people that are really – it's not the analyst. You have to play the game to be an expert, right? You can be an expert armchair quarterback, but you got to be the quarterback with the guys rushing in your face to become an expert at something. That's what I'm trying to say, right?
And I think you're making an excellent point. And I think and this is more of what makes the HSFF Hour great is because so many of those shows on Sirius or podcasts or whatever, they're good. But they're not tailored to maybe high volume players. They're not tailored to players that are used to forking over 3, 4, 5 digits sometimes for an entry fee. Right. And you don't get people on those programs talking about from experience. So those programs are great in the fact that they're made for the 95% of people who play fantasy, right, either for low stakes or for fun. And they're in shallow leagues, right? Maybe some 10-teamers mixed in there or whatever. So the hosts and the producers, they create content for that listener. The majority of our listeners, that's not who they are, right? So to bring on somebody who, like David Hubbard or Danny Mueller or, any of these big time players that are playing, number one, they're investing thousands of dollars of their own money. Correct. And they're playing in, hundreds of leagues, right? And so I think that's what makes the HSFF Hour different is we get those guests on, not just every once in a while. We bring a new one on every week. And I think that's it makes it so much fun. What makes that show so much fun to do.
No, and that show is good because I'm listening to people that I'm playing against. And I love listening because, we all think we know it all, right? but everybody's mindset and how you wheel and deal and do things is different. And it's night and the people, I mean, you got people that are winning $500,000 as guests on your show. It's not really luck, there. The most of the people, you can't win all the time, right? But most of the good people are at the top, close to the top of that leaderboard a lot.
Yeah, no, and totally right. And how else, how else would you get a chance to hear how they did it or how they do it?
Right.
And you bring up something too, and this is something and I'm still grappling with this as a fantasy player myself, but doing something playing fantasy football for as long as you and I have, you get set in your ways, right? You believe, okay, this is the way I need to win.
Yes.
And there's certain things, and this is something that I was totally wrong about the first few years I did that show. We get guests on and they'd say, this is the secret. This is the key. This is what you got to do. Or they believe in a player I hated and would never touch. And they're saying he's going to be a league winner. And I would just block it out of my mind. Right. Like that's, this guy's smart, but he's obviously wrong about that. You got to stop doing that. And I still struggle with it because you have to embrace the different viewpoints. And the more you see things from a different line of thinking other than your own, I think the better fantasy player you become, if that makes sense. It's one of those things where you got to kind of get out of your own echo chamber and look at things from a different viewpoint.
I think I'm the greatest dynasty player out there. I do well in everything, and I think I'm as good as there is. There's people better than me, and there's people with different ideas. And like you said, especially when it comes to drafting.
Yeah.
Drafting, I mean, I'm drafting my guy all the time, right? I'm looking for my guy. It might be around early. I'm getting my guy. My guy better be the guy, right?
Yeah.
Because
you're getting him all the time, yeah.
You're getting him all the time, right? I'm drafting Keenan Allen all the time. Whether it's in the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, depending on what I'm doing, I'm drafting him. I like him.
But do you feel do you still do that, Nelson, when you're drafting? I'm like, okay, this is my 30th league. I got this dude in 24 of them. Am I too overweight on this guy, even though I believe he's going to be a stud this year? Do you hedge ever?
You know what?
Have you evolved that in that way?
I do hedge on him, but if you look at my winnings the last 7 to 10 years, I'm winning big or I'm breaking even. It's not a whole lot of.
It's a good way to do it. It's a good way to do it.
Right. I'm a good enough player where you're not going to beat me. I'm gonna do fine. And my good years, when my guys hit that I believe are my guys, I do really well.
To the moon. Yep.
Really well.
Yeah.
The year before, I broke about even, and that's the way it goes. But I feel like my floor is pretty safe. Right, I feel like my floor. So, tell me, in your words, Eric Balkman, what makes and I first of all, I believe the statement I'm going to say. What makes the FFPC the greatest fantasy football platform out there?
Well, I think it's like anything, right? It's not one thing; it's a combination of things. I think that Dave and Alex are. Well, number one, they started this because they were players before they owned the FFPC. Right. I mean, they're playing the WCOF and so they based, everything that they started the company on, they based it on what they would want from a fantasy football contest operator. I think not only are they smart fantasy football players, I think that they are smart in building something pretty special. And I think they're really intelligent when it comes to running the operation. And I think they're both extremely business savvy. They will, bring things to mind when they talk to me about it, stuff I would never even would have thought of. And so I think they're very far ahead of the game in that. So when you have that foundation of those two guys who, by the way, get along too. I mean, how many different operations have you seen where you basically have two guys and they butt heads and it doesn't work? Well, these guys
like me and Heather.
Yeah, these guys, they know how to work together. And I think that's great. Chris Lambert, who is like the foundation of our customer service. And I hear, several times a week, people telling me how great she is. And I know how great she is. Actually, I don't know how great she is because we haven't seen her ceiling yet. She's still ascending and being
amazing talent.
Yeah. And so when we got her, whatever that was, in year 4, year 5, when she came over, we were all really excited because she had known a lot of people from WCOF. She has the chops and is very good with, managing relationships with people. And she's extremely, extremely hard worker. So that was awesome. So then you get the customer service aspect of it. And I think too, and we say this every year, and I know people don't believe us. I know some people don't believe us when we say this, but we are still about the player. And we want to offer things that the players want, Now, when we open stuff up at the end of the season for suggestions, hey, what do you want to see us do this year? What do you not want to see us do this year? What changes do you want to see us make? What stuff do you want to make sure that we keep constant? We take all those to heart. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to make all those changes, but we have made a lot of changes, based on it. Case in point, the Never Too Early Best Ball tournament this year. If it wasn't for players responding to us saying, hey, this is what we want, this is what we want to play in, that never would have happened. So I think the fact that, that Alex and Dave can run this business as long as they have, starting it for the player, by the player, and to still continue and still that have, as part of like an unofficial mission statement, I think that makes it great too. We're not going to make changes willy-nilly all the time, but when we see something we think we can be better, we act on it.
So you know what, you touched on something, because I know you were about to ask me as a player, why do I think FFPC is the greatest thing? And it's two things. One is, shit rolls downhill, and at the top of that mountain, you got two really sharp guys that actually care. But what I think makes this work is you have now entered the big ball of wax, because FFPC known as the premier high stakes leagues, right? Okay, that's what the common guy on the street. When you guys started with this $35 best ball stuff and we're able to bring in the lower end players, with all due respect to them, and mesh it with the high end people that that you've established, it was really able to come together. As far as there's something for everybody there.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And that was something that I think we really put an emphasis on about a half decade ago, right around there, because we wanted to get fresh blood. We wanted to get more players and the reason we want to get more players is the more people we have playing, not only can we make the top end prize, $500,000, or like the main event this year is $1 million.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
And not only can we do that, but when you have more players, now we can flatten out that structure too and pay super deep, which people want. Big, huge grand prizes, big deep payouts, and that's something that we're excited about. And when you bring it, and there's tons of players that have come in to I'll give you an example here. Joe and Jason, I'm going to butcher the last name. It's either Reither or Ryther. I can't remember which. They won our main event. I don't know, 8 years ago. They got in on when we did daily stuff for like a year, like a $55 entry. They ended up winning that, and they turned it into an FFPC. They turned it into they got like a football guys team, right? So $350 football guys team. They win it. They win their league, and they choose as their prize a main event team the following year.
Correct.
And that main event team the following year wins the 6-figure grand prize. So and it's because they started off small, and people do. I mean, we see it all the time. You get in a $5 league, $35 league, you work your way up, you start playing more. And
it's the poker satellite. It's a poker satellite, and it's been cool. So we talked about this. We haven't talked about this. We're going to talk about this. So Heather, when you draft in the main, like you were out in Vegas for the main events, okay? But most of the main event drafts are done online, okay? And there's hundreds of them. The football guys drafts, 12,500 teams done online. Every draft, okay, has a moderator. Eric Balkman, how many drafts do you moderate in a season? Because this guy's got to stay online. Wait. 2 questions. How many do you a season? And how many are you doing at one time? This is some inside shit right here that people want to know. So this guy, right, he's on and I got his phone number. If there's anywhere to draft, God knows there's things that go wrong and stoppages because somebody's times out because their computer goes out. The draft's got to pause. And then 4 picks went off. He's got to back them up. It's something he has to pay attention to because you're dealing with people's money, right? And their customers. So it's got to get it right. How many drafts are you doing at one time? 3 questions. How many are you doing at one time? How many are you doing a night? And how many do you do in a season?
Well, the answer is the same to all of them. It varies. Early in the season, I'll take you through it. So we usually launch the Football Guys Players Championship right after the NFL draft in May. First weekend's usually pretty busy, but rarely am I doing more than one at a time. As we move through, and shout out to Bryce Masters, who commissions even more than me. Bryce is more tech savvy than me, and he's got a setup at his place with he's got 4 giant monitors, and he's got the setup. I don't have that setup, so I can't do it.
Behind the scenes shit, Heather.
It's massive.
Eric's like, I'm not getting 4 monitors.
No.
Guy's got them, so now he's doing it.
Walk me through this. I'm dying to know this.
So June, not that busy, right? July, I would say when we do the Pros versus Joes drafts that we hold on the HSFFO every single year, after that, drafting season really picks up, right? Late July and August. August, I get home from work and I'm in front of my computer at 5:30 getting ready for I should say 6:30 Eastern, getting ready for the 7:00 Eastern draft. And at that point in August, man, then you start pretty regularly doing 2 or 3 at a time. Then the draftathon weekend, and then basic draftathon weekend is always Labor Day weekend. And then that last week, going out to Vegas, you're starting at least 3 or 4 of them every 30 minutes. There's times where, I'm doing 11, 12, 13. I think the most I ever did at one time was, 19. But
okay, how are you seeing this? You don't have Bryce's setup.
Right. So to couch that, the way I'm able to do 19, number one, it was a bunch of them that started and then a bunch ended. So I was only doing 19 for about 15 minutes, and then it went back down to another. Now, what we do have, and this is some inside stuff with the FFPC, is several years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even longer, we built in for the commissioners a draft dashboard. In other words, it's one screen, and we can pretty easily see what's going on, whether somebody's hitting the commish help button, whether somebody's typing, whether somebody needs help. Pretty easily, we can look at 12, 13 drafts on there, no problem. Okay. And so we're alerted pretty easily. So when it gets to be, when I'm doing drafts early in the season, I have the draft room open. I'm looking at it, because I'm only doing 1, maybe 2 at once. But when we get to like mid-August, late August, I have that draft dashboard fired up because there's no way I could, watch 15 drafts at once. Bryce could. I cannot do that. So that's sort of
Bryce is like, I don't use that dashboard.
I don't know how he does it, because we've talked shop. We've tried to make each other better as commissioners. And I'm like, Bryce, if I did half the stuff you tell me to do, I would get so many people complaining about me, and nobody ever complains about it. Everybody is Nelson, you've probably been in drafts when people are like, oh, we love Bryce, Balky's the worst or whatever. It's insane to me how, but it works out. And as long as the drafters and the players are happy, we've done our job, right? Because we want it.
Do you know when I'm in a draft?
Okay.
Besides when I say hi to you in the chat.
Right.
You know,
probably, okay, early in the season, I might look to see who's in a specific draft, but not always. But when it's later in the season, man, I can't, unless it's a few minutes before the start and I don't have all 12 people in there, and I'm calling, I don't see I don't look. You know what I mean?
And are you following pick by pick?
Early in the season, I usually do. When I'm doing a bunch of at once, I just can't. It doesn't work out.
Early in the season happens, and at 104, somebody takes Miles Sanders. What are you saying to yourself?
Well, I'll tell you this.
This guy. This could be a problem.
No. There was a time. Trying to think what year it was. But I had a guy get everybody always wants the number 1 pick so they could take McCaffrey. Well, they did. I don't know if they will this year.
Bring him in.
But
hold on, Eric, let me interrupt you real quick here. My estranged partner, Ricky Taylor, is here. Rick, Eric Balkman, Fantasy Heather, and I'm your host, Nels V. Good evening to you. So we are. Have you been listening to this?
I have been until Yes, I've been listening to it.
Oh man, Rick looks like he's having a rough night.
It's really pretty cool shit. All right, so we're talking draft moderation and inside stuff. Go ahead, continue, sir.
There was a couple of years ago, and everybody always wanted McCaffrey at the 1. Some guy got the 1 pick, and he took Miles Sanders at the 101. And I was like, what? This has to be a mistake. And I'm like, nah, wasn't an auto draft. I don't know what it was. And I looked, and it was actually, I don't know if you guys know Ron Meyer, 2-packer on Twitter. He was the one who did it. And I think maybe it was showing up you, Nelson. I can't remember if it was showing up you or maybe it was Nelson Sousa, but I remember there's a Nelson involved in it and why he made that Miles Sanders pick at the 101. It's so difficult to try to collude in these drafts. The few people that have tried in the last 12, 13 years, I mean, we flushed them out pretty easily. It was obvious. So for me to follow pick by pick to see, okay, what is this guy doing here? Is he working with somebody? It doesn't really work that way. Now, there are a ton of drafts I'm sitting in, and I will look at somebody's draft. I'm like, what is this person doing here? But he's putting up the 350 or the 2,000 or whatever it is from me. I'm going to let him draft this team.
I couldn't sit behind the screen without reacting to every one of that guy's picks.
Nelson would be calling people like, dude, what are you doing?
What are you doing, dude?
Well, and what's crazy is you see Darren Armani from Fantasy Mojo and Fantasy Mojo on Twitter. He puts out a lot of these drafts after the day after they happen. Yeah. And now with these 35 and now we have $5 best ball drafts, people try some crazy stuff because it's only $5, $35.
He does a great job posting that stuff. You'll see the one where the guy takes 6 tight ends in a row out of the 112 spot, and he posts that stuff up. With the googly emoji eyes.
Like, what's going on here? Or he puts the red bar around that
many
team.
Drafts. I think I would like just to sit on your couch and I would get so excited by watching people's stupidity. I'm excited even thinking about it. So occasionally we see you in the chat room at FFPC.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be some funny shit there because there are some of the dumbest ass questions I've ever seen in the history of the world in there. Because what gets me and what I think is funny is when I read the guy talking who nobody's ever heard of him. It's his first time on. Yo, commish, he's talking to the commish, you and the commish are going out for beers after the question.
I think and this is sort of this is a good thing about FFPC because you think about where we're at as far as a contest operator, and when people say they use our name and DraftKings and FanDuel, for example, in the same sentence, I'm like, we are nowhere, with all the VC money that they have, and we have none, and we built this but people expect the same instant gratification and the instant response, from us, which we like. We can't always provide it. And I think a lot of people go in the chat just expecting that they can type whatever in there, and it'll be like Alexa or Siri, right? And you get your response, the answer you're looking for there. And we just don't have the people to moderate that thing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's why I always say email is the best, because you'll get a tailored answer to that. As far as crazy stuff in there, occasionally.
Hold on, before you go.
Yeah.
So, because I'm trying to get like stuff answered for myself here. So, I know if you do something at 3 a.m, you're not getting an answer. Is there a chat room schedule at FFPC?
No, at least not to my knowledge. I do know that we have at least 4 moderators that are in there in different time zones. I don't know if
Alex is in there a bunch. Most of the time, Dave's in there. I see you in there. I see Chris Lambert in there. Do you guys ever all go there together by accident?
Yeah. No, I mean, like it. I mean,
or do you come home from work and I'm going to do an hour of chat room right now?
Well,
how does it work?
Yeah, I don't know if, like, I would say the 4 major ones are the ones you mentioned: Alex, Dave, Chris, and then Mike Petrop, sort of our legal guy, is in there a lot. He does a ton of customer service with us too. So shout out to Mike; he's awesome. I don't know if we have like a Slack set up for us, and we'll kind of communicate on that. Say, hey, I got to duck out and do this for the next few hours. Can somebody watch the chat? Can somebody watch the emails or whatever coming in? And somebody's always usually by a computer can hang out. I would say, like, outside of the witching hour, I mean, we're in there pretty early in the day. We're usually, especially in drafting season, we're in there fairly deep into the night. But we can't guarantee we're always going to be in there at any one time. So, but we try to be in there as much as possible.
Give me a funny story about that. It's got to be. I read funny shit in there I read it. It's like part of my daily reading. I know Rick does that also. I mean, we started to go in there more because there's Dynasty Depot talk in there this time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I
feel important when I see that, so it makes me feel good.
Well, it should. I mean, it's testament to Dynasty Depot, getting mentioned in there a lot. I think is really an example of how good you guys have done everything here. I don't necessarily really have anything funny that I could say about the chat. I think that there are, sometimes it gets spammed overnight, just by some whatever. And people take it as serious, like, oh, what's this guy talking about? Should I be concerned? Like, what, and it's just, it's like a Nigerian prince type thing. It's nothing. So, and I don't necessarily think I have any funny stories about that. I can tell you that, and you probably privy to this, but in the actual draft room, when we built our own software a few years ago and started using it, the draft room changed
correct
from what it used to be to what it is now. And I don't know what happened. I never really saw it, but there were times when people would be hitting the commish help button. They would be saying pause. I'd write in the chat, hey, what's up? Are you having any problems? What's the issue? And then they just keep saying, stop the draft, pause. And it's already stopped. It's already paused. And finally, I get a response from the person. It's not letting me pick. And I look at the top of the screen and he's on deck. He's not on the clock. And that has happened numerous times. And so we end up pausing the draft for 3 or 4 minutes because this guy or woman or whoever can't make the pick because they're not on the clock yet.
I think as a player, and Rick will confirm this, I don't think there's any 2 words worse in the English language than draft paused. It is awful, dude.
Yeah.
It's 12:30 at night. I'm ready to go to bed. I'm in the 24th round of the Terminator draft. Draft paused.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing too, because one of the things I struggle with, because I'm with you. Like there's times that I start commissioning at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, I'm not getting done till 1:30, 2 in the morning. And it's like every night, and I still have, technically I have 2 other jobs besides FFPC. So I got other stuff to do in the morning too. But at the same time, it's just like, I want to show the same courtesy at 12:30 in the morning to somebody who I would show at 7:30 at night, because I want to remain consistent. And no matter who you are, no matter how much you spend or whatever, I want to do that. And that's always a challenge, right? Because I know everybody, they sign up for the late draft and it's like you said, round 25 of a Terminator. And like, I didn't want, Anthony McFarland there. I wanted, a Benny Snell or something like that, which, may be a big deal. It may not be, but I know that does get people. So I am aware. And you are not the only person that has brought this up. I'm aware.
Heather.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Before you ask your question, you look a little bored. Can you take a drink for us, please? And then you can ask your question. Now you can ask your question.
Hey, drinking.
I'm at a new bar at my house. So
she built a bar. She's not allowed to go out the bar, so she built her own bar.
So when we were out in Vegas, and we were sitting at our Dynasty Depot table, and a lot of the players would kind of stop by, and then they would like see each other and chat, and there were all these relationships. That was kind of this awesome thing for me to see, where I'm like, they don't live near each other, but they all knew each other, like, oh, how's it going since, you got divorced or whatever. It's like, is all that coming from these chat rooms? Like, is that where these relationships are? Because these guys were like they were like tight. I mean, I was like, you guys know each other? Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they don't live anywhere near each other. So it was actually awesome. And then they were like, we missed you last year, man. Because of COVID and, everybody was like excited to be back together. So, but it seems like that's like the community that you guys have that maybe some of these bigger ones don't have. So you have this like slick operation with this like sense of like a community,
Yeah. And I think we're pretty proud of that. I mean, I think if you ask anybody,
absolutely,
that we've built a really nice community of a lot of cool people here, and we're always looking to expand on it. I think initially, the FFPC message boards were probably where a lot of these friendships got started, and obviously the live events out in Las Vegas. The message boards don't get near as much attention as Twitter now, where a lot of these relationships are continuing to be, developed. But at the same time, I think that when you're in draft rooms, especially some of these guys that are drafting several times a week, and then talking about the draft the next morning on Twitter, most of those, 95% of those guys only see each other once a year, and that's at the live events in Las Vegas. So I think there is a certain amount of it's sort of like, like when you get together with your family at Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever, because a lot of times the only time you see some of those people are at those holidays. Well, this is the holiday where, drafting, that's a lot of times where you rekindle all these relationships from an actual physical standpoint.
Yeah. It was really cool to see. It was fun.
It is. And the analogy to seeing your family once a year on Christmas, that's kind of what it is. It's very cool. It's a cool community, man, and that's
that one time a year is enough.
Yeah, well,
by Sunday, when all drafts are over with, you're just sick of them. Like, all right, we got to get the hell out of here. This is enough.
How much fantasy football do you play?
Last year, I think it was either last year or two. No, I think it was last year. I was in 24 leagues, and I think that was the most that I'm in. Typically, I like the slow drafts because when it gets to be drafting season, I don't have time. I can't dedicate a night where I can sit down for a couple hours and draft online.
Now, do you play in FFPC events?
No, cannot do that. Never have done that, but I do play in a lot of private leagues with actually some FFPC players, which is pretty cool. And then the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, Farrell Elliott, who co-hosts the HSFF Hour.
He's cool, dude.
He's awesome. And I played, I would say that's probably like 90% of the leagues I play in is in Kentucky, which is so weird because that is I always go down to Louisville for that live event. And that is 2 weeks before the FFPC. So I try to draft as much as I can that weekend because that's really my only drafting weekend of the year. But like 24 leagues, I would say last year I was in a few best balls. I play Dynasty as well. I think like to have a High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour show, I try to manage as many leagues as I can handle.
You need, that's what I was saying. You have to play to know.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And
I
I don't know if I'll get into 24 leagues this year because, like, obviously we're expecting a big year with commissioning and everything. But I'm sure I'll have another healthy amount in 2022 as well.
Give me one story that's not getting anybody in trouble. Give me something on Alex and Dave. Just give me something.
Yeah. So I only see Alex once a year in Las Vegas. He lives in Manhattan. Chris is obviously in New York as well as Mike. Mike is working in Manhattan with Alex. But Dave and I mean, we have our desks for our day job are like, 5 feet from each other. And I wish I had a great Dave story to share. But wait.
I got a question.
Yeah.
You're triggering me.
Yeah.
Did everybody at the office know you guys are on the biggest fantasy football platform out there?
No. And that's I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I mean, well, because so for our day job, Dave has an e-commerce company that not only do I work for it, but Commish Bryce also works for it. That's sort of how he got roped into commissioning all these leagues. And then we only have 2 other people. So it's an extremely small office. We're in an office building. So there's probably, 30 other businesses or so in there.
So you're not like walking out and somebody's sitting at the desk next to you and Dave's like, come on, we got to get out of here. We got 600 dynasty drafts going on tonight.
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. No, it's weird. Like when you do run it, like I've had people, because I have a local radio, sports talk radio show here in Northeast Wisconsin. And I have people come up to me who I would think would know me or recognize me from that. And they want to talk FFPC with me. People that have no idea that, he's an FFPC guy and he lives in Appleton, Wisconsin. Who knew? So that's always kind of weird too. But yeah, it's not reached anywhere kind of celebrity status or anything like that where people are like, oh, you're that guy. Nothing like that.
After the 13 people watch this on YouTube, dude, you might.
Then it'll blow up. Blow up.
You might blow up a little bit.
Better get those bulky hats on.
Yeah.
Give me the Alex story. I know you got it teed up. Give me something. Yeah.
So this isn't. So Alex and I, I have to ask him, but I think we have a really good relationship. But again, I don't hang out with him. I don't see him a whole lot. And he has. We have a celebration dinner in Las Vegas Saturday night every year when all the drafts are done, and we go out. And Alex usually gets a couple of cocktails in him, and then he starts asking me to do impressions because I do an Alex impression, I do a Farrell Elliott impression, and he just has me do random impressions of people who are sitting at our table. I'm never comfortable doing that when the person is 2 feet from me, and every time I do Alex, he kind of half smiles. But I'm like, man, he totally hates me right now. Like, does not enjoy this at all. So one time, we have a server at our table, and she has a pretty thick British accent, and I have a couple of beers in me, so I start doing an impression of her. She's not at the table at this point. I start doing an impression of her. I can't remember who is sitting next to me, and we're all laughing, and Alex is like, well, who is that? And I said, oh, that's our server, Linda, or I think her name is Linda. And he's like, oh, that's great. You got to do it for her. I'm like, I don't want to do an impression of the woman I met 5 minutes ago.
Serving my food to me.
Serving, and so then of course she comes to the table, and Alex is like, Linda, hang on a second. Can you Balky here he does impressions. He does impersonations of people, I just heard him doing a great one of you, and he wants to do that for you right now. And I'm like, I'm not doing, but he's my boss. What am I gonna do? So I did it, and then and everybody laughed or whatever. And then I could tell I think she genuinely enjoyed it. And then she said something like, it's a bit of a mystery why he's telling me this before I've brought him his food, And I'm like, Great. Now I'm going to have
Yeah.
saliva all over my steak, British saliva all over my steak tonight. And it's all thanks to Alex. But yeah, then he usually, it's weird. The last couple of years, he hasn't asked me to do them. And I'm thankful for that. But that's.
He's going to be excited when he sees this tonight.
Oh, I'm sure he's going to be thrilled. Yeah.
That was a good Alex impression.
That was hilarious.
Really
It
good.
was good. It was good.
Hey, so
Nelson, I have an Alex story that I would like to share. When we were out in Vegas, my girlfriends were with us that were my like little, my little.
all right, Heather, we
team.
gotta go. No, okay. Is this?
And
Go ahead.
and my what?
I'm teasing you.
And my girlfriend's like to this man who was Alex. She's like, "Will you take our picture?" And I'm like, "Oh my God!" I'm like, he's like in charge of this whole thing, and he's like, "You want me to?" And I'm like. And I don't want you to. So he's like taking our picture. I was like, "Thanks, Al."
Yeah, no, that's it, and he's super nice. Like
he was great,
really nice guy. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised he did that. That's awesome.
Last thing I want to touch on. I can't beat that, but I did want to touch on this. What year did you start with them?
With FFPC?
Yeah.
I don't know if I was a full-fledged employee, but I've been doing work with them since the first year of their existence.
What was the main event prize there?
I think year one it was 75,000 was the main event grand prize. 75. Chad Schroeder won it. 75.
Every time I log on to FFPC, which is probably 75 times a day, $1 million grand prize this year. That's crazy, right?
It is crazy. And this is another like inside baseball thing. Now, Alex and Dave, I don't think have ever made a decision based on something I've said, but they do like getting my opinion on stuff. And I don't know. So this is sort of like, there was a documentary done on Seinfeld, like a short one, like NBC aired. It was like an hour after the show had been off the air. And they were talking to the creator, Jerry Seinfeld, Larry Charles, Larry David, all these guys. And everybody was very cool about it. And every single, they kind of take you through, NBC gave us a pilot. NBC gave us 8 episodes. NBC gave us 16 episodes. And every time they're interviewing, everybody's very excited except for Larry David. Larry David was always like, how am I going to come up with enough material for 8 full episodes? And he's just, it's gut wrenching, right? Because he knows that everybody's going to find out he's a fraud. Everybody's going to find out he's a failure. So to bring this back to FFPC, there's been several times with the Football Guys Players Championship with the main event. Hey, Balky, we're thinking about moving the grand prize from 100,000 to 200,000. And I'm like, no, you cannot do that. We're not going to fill it. We're going to lose a ton of money. Hey, Balky, we're thinking about moving it to 250 to 500,000. It would be a massive mistake. You guys, we cannot do this. And I generally don't know if they're asking me just to see my reaction or to gauge my actual, what I think. And I'm always the Larry David in this. And then I hear $1 million this year. And I'm just like, what are you guys thinking? But every single time it's always worked out. I mean, they're the ones crunching the numbers. I'm just the conservative one that's like, all right, let's not do this. But they know what they're doing.
Yes. Next time, say yes, and then they'll go, never mind. We're not going to do it.
I'll say yes, and we'll have 40% of the teams left over by the time the season starts.
There's something to be said about when people guarantee big prizes. One of our sponsors is Circa Hotel out in Las Vegas, right? And the owner, Mr. Stevens, there, and somebody told me this story. When he was going to open Circa, they wanted to have that $3 million survivor pool, and he put guaranteed on it. You stamp guaranteed on something. If 2 people sign up, you're guaranteeing that $3 million. And the marketing staff, and this is a true story, Mikey told me this story. Marketing staff went nuts after the meeting broke, after he presented this. This is disaster.
Yeah.
And the next meeting, he came in and said, I hear you chattering about this is going to be a disaster. I hear the chatter. He goes, when you guarantee something, watch what happens. And of course, it filled, 2 weeks before it was supposed to even fill. People start guaranteeing $1 million, it's going to fill. It's going to fill.
And two, I mean, like, I think one of the things we struggled with early on was, drafts getting to 8-9 players and then we have to cancel it. Now I don't think, I mean, we still deal with that.
Sure.
But to a much less degree. And I think that is because, we've never had a problem paying out prizes. We've never had a problem, for the most part, selling out the main event, selling out the Football Guys Players Championship, selling out our playoff challenges and everything like that. And I think that's, sort of a testament to what the players believe in at the FFPC and why they believe in it and why
it
they
is. It's also, it's what the players want.
Yeah.
It doesn't fill up unless if it's what the public and the players want. And that's what they want. They want the lottery ticket that they can manage. And
I think too is like, deep payouts are awesome. And obviously if somebody falls short, to still get, a healthy prize is great, but everybody you're always chasing that dream, right? Chasing the dream of $500,000 or $1 million, this year.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
Is that what it was last year? 500?
500 was, yeah. And now this year it'll be $1 million. So get the word out. We need to sell these teams.
That's not a problem. We're gonna be promoting that for the next couple months on this show. That's for sure, buddy. I cannot thank you enough for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and this is definitely something you didn't have to do. But I thank you very much. I thank you for being an early promoter of Dynasty Depot and helping us get where we're at. Your relationship, it was kind of a bridge for us to get into FFPC and get this deal done with them to begin our company. And it's been a hit, but I want to say thank you very much for everything you've done for us and for being a friend and walking us through this FFPC thing. I mean, you've known each other, 7-8 years now, and it's appreciated. I think you're great at what you do, and I can't thank you enough, man.
Well, thanks so much. Pleasure is all mine. Happy to do the show. You guys have done some pretty amazing stuff at Dynasty Depot, and keep up the great work. It's awesome. And again, very player centric, and I think that's why it works. It's why people love Dynasty Depot. It's why people love the FFPC.
It is. Eric, where can people find you on Twitter? Where can they find your show? When can they see your smiling face again?
At Eric Balkman on Twitter. That's ERIC and then BALKMAN. The show, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, is at HSFF Hour, obviously on Twitter. And we air now on YouTube, 10 o'clock Eastern time every Friday night. If you
I'm looking forward to coming on your show, by the way.
Yeah, we're gonna get you back on for sure. 10 o'clock Eastern time every Friday night, with myself and KFFSC Commissioner Farrell Elliott. And then if you can't catch that, we'll basically anywhere you get podcasts, you'll be able to listen to it later or go back on the YouTube.
Are you done with Blog Talk now?
I think what we're gonna do is, because we have such a big audience there, at least for the initial point, I'm gonna convert the video from YouTube and I'm gonna upload it to Blog Talk Radio, because that filters out to a ton of podcast networks.
Right.
And I think we'll do that initially. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I just want to put it out there where people are going to listen to it. And then of course, monthly, first Thursday in the off season, RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, that will also be switching to YouTube as well. We have Chuck Root, the $500,000 FFPC Playoff Challenge winner, coming up tomorrow. And then Todd Burrows, Todd from PA, Run to Daylight podcast host. He will be on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown this coming Thursday.
That is outstanding. Heather.
You're a busy guy, Eric.
Yeah.
He is.
You are a busy guy.
He is. Heather.
All right, guys, you'll give us a follow at the Dynasty Depot on Twitter. And of course, go snag some teams at dynastydepot.com. Promo code right now is TryDD. Yes.
Let's try DD. Okay. We've a ton of new members have signed up. A lot of people have tried DD. We documented that. We welcome everybody. Don't email me your questions. Give me your phone number. I'll call you back. I'm not typing you anything. I think we've established that. And the promo's done great. Ricky, anything to say tonight from your late appearance?
No, I'm very disappointed. I didn't catch the first half hour. I can blame my son for his computer antics, but no, I'll just what Nelson said. Thanks a lot, Eric, coming on, and it's a good show. Appreciate
you.
All of it.
It
Rick,
is.
you can watch the first half on YouTube.
That's right.
The Dynasty Depot on YouTube and just watch it there.
I'm going to play back the Alex impersonation 7 to 10 times tonight. I'm pretty sure. I love it.
Well,
Okay,
it was great working for FFPC.
I love it.
Well, you want to come to Dynasty Depot?
This is my retirement from the FFPC podcast episode.
I love it. For Mr. Eric Balkman, Mr. Rick Taylor, and of course, the drinking fantasy Heather, we will be back maybe next week, depending on my vacation schedule and how much people annoy me where I have to go to the beach house and hibernate. Or the following week, we will be back. I am Nels V. Thanks for joining us. See us at dynastydepot.com. We're peace out.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Dynasty Depot podcast, the best source for what's hot in Dynasty Fantasy Football team action. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at The Dynasty Depot. And listeners get a 30-day free rookie membership. Go to dynastydepot.com and use promo code PODCAST. Dynasty Depot. Bid, buy, sell, dominate.